Welcome to Let's Play. I'm Alessandra Wall.
And I'm Derek Yanford.
We're risk takers,
Troublemakers,
people who say what needs to be said,
and ask the questions most people won't.
This is a podcast for serious and not so serious people doing big things.
Every episode, we dig into something real. Fear, power, the shit that's in the way.
Sometimes with guests, sometimes just us.
Always unscripted, always honest.
If you're tired of surface level conversations
and ready to actually go somewhere,
you're in the right place.
Let's play.
It's date number 2.
Yes.
And that we have no structure yet from date number 1 to date number 2 for how we want to do this.
But let's celebrate that we've made it to a second date, because I think
right? We could have hated each other on date.
Exactly.
Please, dear Lord, do not call me. Block, delete phone number.
So I'm very proud of us.
Yes, it was hard.
It is hard.
It was harder than it needed to be. How about that? And I will.
But here's the thing, though. It's so funny that we were using this analogy because, as I've shared with you before, I struggled with it. But it actually, the more I use it, the more helpful it is. And part of the reason why is now when I hear people talk about dating and I hear them try to schedule things or whatever, some of them don't make it to a second date or whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, I get that, because now it's not that I don't like you. I do. But we do need to figure out, how does this work? And in the beginning, either you're flexible with that or you're not, depending on whatever it is you want to explore. Mm-hmm. So I get now, second date is like, okay, yeah, there is interest. Let's continue to explore. And it takes some time to figure out how to even figure out when that second date is. So I'm starting to get it.
Yeah. And it's that compatibility idea is really big, because some people fly by the seat of their pants and they do really well with that. And you know what? That used to be me years ago. And these days, I so live by my schedule that if it's not in my schedule, it's not a question of whether somebody's important or not. I have missed very important things because either I or somebody else dropped the ball on sending an invitation and creating that space in my schedule, which is why today I really wanted to talk about time. I know you and I talked about it earlier, and you're like, whatever, that or anything else, but it's really top of mind for me, this idea of time, and very specifically what the way we spend and schedule our time says about what we believe about ourselves and the world.
Okay.
So you and I, we share a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And our coach likes to say things like, the worst thing you can do for somebody who's having time management issues is help them structure their time. Because all they'll do is get busier and busier and busier.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely agree with that, and I've seen it play out. But I've been looking at my schedule and how I structure my time and what's happened to that structure. And it says a lot about me and beliefs I have about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And this morning, I happened to be able to go. I have a client who is down from LA. And anytime we have somebody who's not from San Diego, we take that opportunity to bring as many past and current clients together who are San Diego based. So we had somebody down from San Francisco. She came yesterday. So she was the impetus for my LA person to come down, because they're part of our elite executive group. So we had a live meeting, right, around a not so good dinner from the food perspective, but environment, conversation, amazing. And this woman, instead of driving back to LA overnight, she took a hotel room. And I said, well, let's make it worth your while. We'll do a hike and we'll bring other women in who are not part of elite executives. Some have not been clients of mine for a couple of years even.
Okay.
And I was looking at how the people who came for the hike, what it meant to them to take their Monday morning off and show up for a hike instead of going straight to work.
Hmm.
Creating those boundaries around time. The person who we were doing this for is chronically very late. So she's 45 minutes late. And that says more about her beliefs about herself, and it creates more self-fulfilling dynamics for those beliefs than it
Yeah.
says anything about whether she's considerate or inconsiderate, organized or scattered. The way I've scheduled the last 2 months says more about my beliefs on abundance and scarcity than on how popular I am.
Sure. Sure.
So I'm going to pause and create a break in time for a second. And I'm really curious what your thoughts are.
So the first thought I have is I do not subscribe to the idea of time management. It's not possible. Meaning I have yet to or meet anybody who can make 9:15 come at 9 a.m. Time is what it is. We all have access to the same amount. The only thing that you can manage is yourself within that construct that we call time. And I think that kind of speaks to what you're saying is if you open up your schedule and you put things in there, you take things out, you follow it, or you don't follow it. All of that is just really guiding you over what it is you might consider to be a priority, right? And if you live inside of your schedule, well, you can see you've carved out time for this. You've allotted yourself to be doing XYZ at said time. And you might create rules. Do not schedule over this. This cannot move. This happens all the time. Or it's flexible. You move it, you don't move it. Or, that thing shows up and it's no longer relevant for you to engage in that thing. Or it has been canceled. Or it's subject to whatever. You slept in. Whatever it might be. And so what I've become more conscious of lately in my schedule is putting things in there that are not things to be done, but things to be doing or to be. Meaning this past week, I was in Worcester, Massachusetts. I was driving. I was back and forth to a lot of things. My schedule with the studio that I was working for was always changing because of that's just how they roll. Mm-hmm. And so to help me manage myself, I would block times that said chill or off or be or relax, whatever it is, so that I could see that time maybe wasn't available for someone who has my calendar link, because I could have been, but I also was like, that's not a priority for me right now. I actually, especially if this rehearsal gets moved or something else happens, I need to create something else that's not in there that signals to me, you have this time. You do what you can shrink it. You can do what you want. And depending on how you want to live your life too, I definitely had a coach years ago when I was in the real estate world. He kind of would help us understand this thing about if it's not in your schedule, it doesn't exist. Right? Mm-hmm. And so it helped me get very organized with my clients, who I was seeing, who I wasn't seeing, and things of that nature. And I also, I do love to fly by the seat of my pants. There's some things that cannot be scheduled. I will not schedule, so I see all the different perspectives and the aspects of myself in terms of what time I'm there. I mean, there was a time when I think about it, I forgot about this. When I lived in New York, all the clocks in my house were set to 30 minutes faster than what they really were. And even though I knew that, when I looked and considered it that time, I was always early or I was always on time. I hired a woman to clean my apartment. She reset all the clocks once, and I didn't know. And it changed how I showed up. I was like, what's going on? Even though my watch had the right time, the clock in my car I had changed as well. And I knew for me, living in New York with traffic and other things, that 30-minute thing that my mind believed was true made all the difference of me either being on time or me being late.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I know that sometimes I have to play little tricks on myself. Sometimes I have to schedule something earlier than it is, or if I know I'm going to have an event, other people are going to be late to it, all those kinds of things. So it does come down to me. How do I view how, when, where I will show up? And a calendar can be very useful in doing that.
So first of all, I think that's hilarious. And you saw my look of shock. For anybody who's listening, I was so shocked when he said that his housekeeper changed the time. Because when you're counting on that, right now, suddenly you're that asshole. Right? Like, you're never on time. But you're not, right? You created a system to help you show up on time, and that system was tampered with.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. So before having children, I was always early, or at the very least on time. Mm-hmm. And then having children, I had the best of intentions, but I arrive at time if I'm lucky, and up to 5 minutes late, often. Mm-hmm. Combining children with business, things happen to the way I chose to spend my time and or manage my time. That's a time, to me, when I talk time management, I think about that, but I love the truth of what you say, like time is time, because that's actually something I said this morning, but I'll go back to that. But what I've done over the last several years is I look at, do my days feel like I can breathe, or do my days feel like I'm suffocating? Do I find that I am prioritizing creativity, writing, time to take care of the back end of my business as a strategist and as a leader? Or are those things that I'm shoving into spare time, which ended up being weekends? Or things fell between the cracks, and then I don't look as put together as I actually am in how I'm showing up. And so year after year, I iterate. I've played around with how I distribute coaching hours. Several years ago, coaching for me is Tuesdays through Thursdays. That is it. It used to be Tuesday through Thursday open, and this year we've scheduled for 2025 and 2026, so it's already blocked, time blocking in my schedule. 2 weeks out of the month, I do, again, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning hours. 2 weeks, it's afternoon hours to accommodate people across an international time. And then technically, it's only half day. So the other half day, half part of any Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday is supposed to be to work on writing things, creating things, doing content development. And then Mondays and Fridays are for connecting. And literally on Friday afternoons, it says abundance, work, focus time. Right? So that is a mindfulness. The reality is, if I showed you my schedule right now, that's not what it looks like. I color code everything. Light blue is connection. I have connection times this week. This week, coaching's in the afternoon. Wednesday, I have 4 calls before my 1 p.m., 1:30 p.m. call. I've been very good with lunch. Since I've been a kid, since I've had my first kid, I block off an hour for lunch. And in general, it's very difficult. I will not schedule over lunchtime. And when I say that, I would say that's the one time limit that I have protected. It's 95% of the time I protect that. But I look at this schedule that is full of light blue. And some might say, well, Sandra, look, like this is really cool. What this says about you is you are connecting. You have all these opportunities to meet with people, to have conversations. But that's not actually what it means. So if we break the third wall, and to those of you listening, I really, like, if you can right now as you're listening, pull up your schedule. If you're somebody like Derek or me who like puts things in the books, and look at your schedule and ask yourself what it says about you. And I want to give you an example for me, and I want to give you an example for two women. One is an existing client and one is a past client. So, what my schedule says about me is not that I'm so popular. What it says about me is not that I am so in demand. What this schedule says about me is that I'm buying into scarcity
Mm,
rather than abundance.
mm,
Because if I were buying into abundance, what would happen with all those connection calls that I've scheduled now in the middle of what is my coaching week, where I'm not supposed to be doing this, is for each one of those people who wants to connect with me, I would say, I'm sorry, apparently I'm not available until a month from now. And I would trust that they would still be interested in talking to me and connecting with me a month from now.
mm,
That they would not schedule something and then cancel it, which happens, or just not schedule at all.
mm,
So why am I allowing this to bleed in? If I'm honest with myself, I'm like, I don't feel anxious. That's not how scarcity is expressing itself. But this unwillingness to tell people, sorry, I just don't have room in my schedule on the days that are dedicated to me being present for these connection calls.
mm.
So it's going to be August until we see each other. Anybody listening, it's June 30th. But that's exactly what it would be. If I push it out, it would be August.
Mm,
So for me, looking at my schedule, I can do what most people do and go, oh, I'm so busy, it's so hectic, it's so whatever, but it's just a season. And like, aren't I lucky that this is happening in the summer when everybody else's schedules tend to die out? But if I'm really honest, if I practice what I preach, if my priority is me, I realize, oh, Alessandra, what that is about is scarcity. So, what if you step into abundance? And what that means is moving forward. I realized this last week. I am recommitted because it's an iterative process. I'm an imperfect human, so I will be back here at some point in time. Uh, to going, I'm sorry, I just don't have anything until the second week of August because the first week I'll be in Costa Rica surfing with the girlfriends, right? So it's really nice to me to look at that instead of looking at the surface level, going, this is what it says. And abundance versus scarcity mindset can show up in 1,000 different ways because I'm not walking around feeling scarce. That's what it is. I think
mm,
of my client who's always late. And she's somebody I'm working with on navigating and owning her power. And she's somebody who does not feel powerful, but she is. She's like this woman sings on stage. Like she rocks the stage. She just sung at the whiskey in LA as
mhm,
a late 50-year-old. Then she did it as a 30-year-old. And she's sung in front of a crowd of 1,000 people. That is powerful. But she doesn't feel like that in the real world. And so I'm thinking about what happens every time she shows up late somewhere. This is a conversation I'll have with her because I just had insight about it on my drive back. And what it does is it positions her to have to apologize. She walks in and, like a kid, she has to apologize for being late
mm,
or to be frazzled and to not feel like she's got her shit together, to
mm,
not be able to come into conversations or space fully owning her power.
mm,
And we might say, well, she just runs late, but my background is as a psychologist. So I look at it and I go, I think subconsciously you're creating patterns that are really in part supporting and supported by the belief that you're kind of like a kid. We talk
mm,
about showing up like a little girl very often, right? Not that she's immature, but then that sense of like not having the power that an adult should have in a room when you're surrounded by adults. There's another client, former client now, who came on the walk with us. It was a big deal for her to take this time.
mhm,
She is the caretaker and provider for 4 generations. Her
mm,
mother, her husband, her children, her grandchildren. She's a brilliant woman, incredible, worked herself up, but her time is everybody else's.
mm,
It's her businesses, it's her grandbabies, it's her babies, it's her mother's, then probably her husband. And last, very, very last, so far down that is her.
mm,
I don't think that she's just busy. I think that the way she manages her time speaks to where she sees and believes she belongs on that hierarchy of ownership and value.
Mhm.
So that's the thing that came to me, that to me, we were talking, we share wins and noteworthy. And I said, jump on 90 networks and share this. She's like, this is my win.
Mm.
She just called her boss this morning and said, I'm going to be offline until 11. And he's like, yeah, no problem. See you at 11. You've got a meeting at noon. He'll be there. She's like, yeah, I'll be at the noon meeting. And to take the time. But she needed a push from me and from her daughter to say,
Mm.
Mama, go.
Yeah.
Right? Like, go do it. Go. All these other people have jobs too, and they're choosing to start their day with a hike.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. You know, it's interesting to hear you talk in terms of abundance and scarcity when it comes to your schedule, or even the word popularity. Like
Mhm.
if your schedule is full, or you know that you're busy, that your attention is needed in other places, and that maybe the more you have of that, the more valuable you perceive yourself, or others might perceive that you are. Especially if I can't meet you till November, I'm not available. That might produce some kind of idea of my busyness and things of that nature. And one of the things for me that's helpful is I constantly remind myself that I am a time billionaire, that I have all the time in the world. I'm never going to run out of it. The thing about time is I can only spend it. I cannot save it. I cannot conserve it. It's something I have that can only be spent. So the question is, how would you like to spend your time? And for me, today, for example, there are two things that I canceled that I have been on my schedule for quite a long time, that I've been looking forward to, and I really do want to be a part of. There was a little bit of overlap. I could have made it work. But something else that I haven't been able to take advantage of also presented itself. And I was like, this is the thing. This is what I'm going to do. And I immediately took action and I said, hey, I'm not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z today. Everybody was okay with it. And what's more interesting for me is usually the things that I want to do, I have to be relegated to only one because they're happening simultaneously. And there's only one of me so far. But I that really helps me to prioritize, because I'm reminded by something my therapist said to me, which is feet vote, period. Forget what you're thinking about. Forget what you said you were going to do. Forget what you've planned to do. Look at where your feet are at. That's where you're spending your time. If you ever want to know where you're prioritizing, just look down. Your feet will tell you exactly what you have made priority. So when I think about that, I'm like, where would I like my feet to be? Where am I going to place my feet? Oh, at this place, at this location. And that's been really helpful. And you know, something happened to me last week, and weeks prior, that is probably less top of mind now because we're past the pandemic in ways than it feels like it's been around. I had some appointments that got canceled. Something happened in this person's life that was maybe somewhat unexpected, or the timing wasn't able to keep those commitments. Let's say I get sick or there's an accident. I had a doctor's appointment last week that I was like, oh, well, I'll reschedule it because I'm in Boston. It's not gonna work. I'll reschedule. The next available appointment was October 12th. I was like, and so my day of rehearsal, I spoke to the woman I was working for. I'm like, look, I scheduled this thing. I thought I could reschedule it. She was like, no problem. And that's the other thing too, is sometimes I have a fear that if I reschedule, I'm irresponsible, or I have no integrity, or how could you possibly do that? We agreed to this thing. And the reality that I have come to is that things are much more fluid and flexible than I would give them credit for. And some things, forget what you've planned. There's this term that you make plans and God laughs. Honey, we are subjected to certain things that are outside of our control that we never saw coming. Mm-hmm. And I think if we're really talking about what it says about you, we're talking about, well, what does it say about you in the way that you respond to when your schedule changes or fluctuates or isn't anything like you plan, especially if somebody else does show up late too. I know that for events that I hold, I do like to start on time. I'm aware that some people will come a little bit later and I want to whatever. But at the same time, I recognize I am devaluing the people who got there on time or came early. I'm saying latecomers, it's okay. And so now I've kind of shifted a little bit too, going, I'll make it clear, especially on an online thing, depending on the work we're doing, if you're at 5 minutes, I won't be letting you in because you're going to be disrupting something I've already created.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. I feel better about that for me and about the people who are there. When I first did it, I was like, should I? No, I couldn't. And I was like, no. So I love that when we're talking about time and scheduling, we're really talking about ourselves. What is important to us, what we will put up with, what we will not put up with, and how we respond when it goes a little bit differently. And I'll say this to our listener. I have no children. I have no pets. I have no plants. I have nothing that I have got to take care of in those senses that needs my attention for food, water, whatever it might be. And if I did, I have no idea how I would be able to function.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm going to remove that from the table because those of us who do have children, pets, I have all of them. I have like 4 pets. I have children. I have a spouse, which is a little bit like having children. I'm sure he feels the same way about me. This is no indictment on him. It's very easy to use that as the excuse. I'm not blaming my children for why after having children, I stopped being able to, I stopped showing up early to things. That's my choice not to add an extra 15 or 20 minutes to the way I used to do things. That's my choice, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, there are things that can happen, right? Somebody can get sick. I might have to do whatever, but those are extraordinary times for the most part in life. There is something to me really, again, it was this choice last week. I'm like, how am I here again? I took so much time at the end of last year to really think about last year's schedule, what worked, what didn't work. And I entered this year with such a sense of ownership of my time, but also power in that ownership. Mm-hmm. It was great. Like, I was like, oh, I'm doing things, but I didn't write my newsletter for last week. I started it, but didn't finish it because exceptional event. My brother came in to say hi to San Diego, and he's Paris based. He was doing business on the East Coast. He's like, you want me to come in? I'm like, yes. So that ate up some time. It ate up some time, right? But there are things that I'm not posting as regularly on LinkedIn. Some of that is inspiration. I don't write just to write. I have to be inspired. But you need time. I need downtime. I need space in my brain. I need to be sitting outside doing the art of nothing for more than 5 minutes, which I am doing for myself. The art of nothing is a practice of just sitting down and literally sitting down and staring into space. It's not meditation. It's not mindfulness. It is the equivalent of sitting on your front porch and watching the world go by. And I do that very often. And I'll do it at the end of the days. But I need it in the middle of my workday so that then when an idea comes, I can jot it down. Because at the end of my days, I have very good boundaries around that. Like when I'm finished with my workday, I am not going to go be writing anything for work. So that idea better come during my workday, or then I might not remember it the next day. But I was looking at like, oh, I feel really like I can't catch my breath. I feel like, and that's another piece. It's like, how often do we slow down enough? I happen to create those habits, but how often do most people slow down enough to notice that you've come back to this place where you're like, I'm so busy, like things are hectic. I can't feel, I'm just waiting for the next, like the weekend to come.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a gift. The gift of noticing that and going, oh, I'm making choices that aren't working for me. Again, I could find all kinds of excuses. I could say I'm a busy parent. I could say I'm a whatever. I could say my business, I'm building business. I could say business is running. I could say I have a launch coming July 15th, which is true. Or I could say, I have decided that I need to fill my time up. And if I look at what I'm filling my time up with, so if I look at where my feet are planted, they're planted into connection meetings, right? And
Yep.
those are supposed to happen Mondays and Fridays. So why am I scheduling them Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? Why am I making my time available to other people? And I'm like, and if I sit and think and try to be honest, I'm like, oh, I think that's a scarcity thing. But it has to happen now because if it doesn't happen now, it might not happen. There's a trust piece in that for me.
Mm.
And owning that becomes really important because by owning it, I can change or address the underlying problem as opposed to trying to fix my schedule. Like fixing my schedule is easy.
Mm.
And it's really interesting when you talked about what happens if your day goes off course. Inside of me, they're like, oh, wouldn't that be so amazing?
Yeah.
I love when people cancel. Not all the time, depends. But sometimes people are like, oh, I'm really sorry. I know it's last minute. And if you're a serial canceler, you're going to run into issues. We're going to talk about commitment. We're going to talk about a lot of things.
Yeah.
But when it happens once in a blue moon, I always tell people, I have 1,000 things to do. You just gifted me an hour.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So when you mention what happens when your day doesn't go as planned, I'm like, that sounds lovely. But tomorrow's my birthday. I keep on looking at and telling people my Friday's wide open. Derek, why is Friday wide open? Look at the calendar. Why is Friday wide open?
It's the holiday.
It's a holiday. So I keep on trying to schedule stuff on Friday, and people are like, isn't it July 4th? I'm like, oh, yeah, it's July 4th. That's why my Friday's wide open right now. And one of the things I decided is I don't want to, and we're celebrating my birthday on July 4th.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
want to go through this week waiting for July 5th and 6th, which is the way it felt yesterday. I'm like, oh, okay, all I really want is Saturday and Sunday because I'll be able to do nothing and work on my yard, read my books.
Mhm.
Just like, I just decided that that was more fun than celebrating my birthday with 20 of my friends. Really?
Mhm.
I decided that it was more fun than some of these amazing phone calls and connections I have with people. Really? I'm like, that is not. I could say my job is to ground myself in what I'm doing here and now, but that becomes impossible if I don't recognize what's going on,
Mhm.
that I'm scheduling my time the way it is. So to me, again, the reason I want to talk about this is I love owning where I don't show up perfectly. Like it's
Mhm.
really important. I was on this hike and one of my former clients said, I was telling her about this and said, really? I mean, the one thing I loved about you is you're so good with boundaries. And I'm like, well, shit, now you're not going to love me anymore. And I said, I am really good about boundaries. I said, I've had boundaries with the kinds of who I choose to work with. I've turned down business because somebody is not exactly the kind of person I want to work with. I've got
Beautiful.
great boundaries in this place and that place, but I'm like, I cannibalize my boundaries in this space.
Mhm.
Right. So there's this image people have. Well, Sandra, you're so structured, you're so organized, you're so whatever, you have great boundaries. And I love removing that veil and showing people going, whoa, wait, in the background of what you think somebody, who you think someone is, there's a whole other human being. Right.
I
So
mean, what's interesting about this conversation too is that I have to be mindful of what I'll call seasons, of where and how I will and can show up and why and how that changes. And I'll be 50 in September. And I want to say it was back in 2007, probably. I had a schedule. I think I created a schedule. I literally didn't give myself a day off. And it was living in New York, driving to Boston on Fridays, teaching for a studio there. Weekend rehearsals, either at that studio or other surrounding studios. Also teaching on Monday, driving home or taking the train Monday night, teaching for a studio in Westchester in Jersey Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then doing the whole thing on Friday again.
mhm.
I had a company in Canada at the time too. So sometimes if I didn't have rehearsals in Boston, I was in Canada. And it was, when I think about it, out of this world, out of this world. And I handled it gracefully. And I came up with some of the most creative work I have ever done in my life, partially because of the push and partially because I believed that because I had such a packed schedule and I was in such demand that I could not show up anything less than genius and perfect. And I believed that to a degree, and so I did. Mm-hmm. And it burnt me out in a way that now I could never do things of that nature, or even the amount of classes that I would have in a row in a day. I can't do that. And what I enjoy now too is I love that I say, I'm not going to do that, not because I'm not available, but because it will not be good for me or for you, right? I can do one of those things. I can cut that schedule in half, but I cannot at this point, like I did before, meet those demands. I'm just not there.
Yeah.
And that's okay to admit. Like if we really want to suck the juice and we want to get the best of me, I'm actually better for a shorter period of time than another period of time. That wasn't true before. Mm-hmm. There would be times where I taught at a college and my schedule was, I had 3 ballet classes, the first at like 10:20. The last one ended at 4. And usually the first 2 were back to back. And then I had like an hour and a half break, and then I'd have the last one. First one, raring to go. Even though I had driven from New York 2.5 or maybe 3 hours and had left my house really early to avoid traffic and had gotten there a few hours before the class started, I was ready. Mm-hmm. By the time the 3rd class rolled around, literally, I remember thinking, how? I cannot do this. And I would walk in, and when the class started, something would flip. And the best, most brilliant version of my teaching would come out and would show up in a place where I never thought it could happen. And it became like habitual, like the last class, every time was the same thing. Now, I don't believe that I could do that. I actually would go, nope, or I'd have to cut my energy, or I'd have to do something else. And that's part of my evolution. That's part of my ability to recognize I go through seasons. There's times where I can push, especially if I know, hey, you know what? Your schedule is going to be really packed for 3 months, but it's going to allow for something else that you can do later that you couldn't do now. I might be able to fit myself into that. Mm-hmm. Or I might find that, for the next 6 months, you got to really dial it down because X, Y, or Z. Where before, I never said no. I had a schedule one time, like I just looked at my schedule and said it could fit. I put it there. No time in between. You're driving from here to there. I don't look at it like that. Or if I have a day off or I have days off, it's like, those are more needed now than ever before.
It's really interesting. Couple things. When I started as a psychologist, I was hired by another company, and we had 45-minute sessions. They could be back to back. And if you put a full day with only a half hour for lunch, if you put a full day together, I counted one day, they could fit in up to 13 patients.
Oh my.
By the way, at the end of that 13 patients, I had to write notes for all those people. Now, it never got to that. I think the worst day I got was 11, but the quality of care is terrible for the 11th person, and the 10th, and the 8th, and the 9th. So I remember then going into practice for myself, and I made 8-hour days. And it felt like I had so much time. I would see no more than 8 patients a day, plus a hour lunch. I said, after I had my kid, this is how I discovered lunch. It was really, really important, because I would be, as this new mom, I was nursing. So my breasts would just fill with milk until 1 o'clock, which is where my lunch break was. And at 1 o'clock, I would shove these things, this pump on me, this contraption. And this is like back in the in 2009. So it's not as cool as the machines that they have now. They're super quiet and whatever. So like a cow, so much empathy for milking cows, by the way, just so much. I nearly stopped drinking milk out of my empathy for that.
Wow.
And I would have these contraptions, and just imagine a bra with 2 water bottles hanging from your nipples. Like that is basically what it is. And the bra's it's going like this. So that And I'm sitting with my arms around this, typing patient notes, eating, and taking insurance calls. And I did that for about a month. And I'm like, never again. So then I gave myself an hour break for lunch. Half of that hour was those calls, the pumping, the notes. And the other one was just to sit and eat. And then I maintained it. So if you look at my schedule, that hour lunch is in bright yellow. It goes nowhere. I very often will sit, I will go inside, I will sit at my lunch table. I will not have a device. I sit, I eat in silence.
Mhm.
And if I have time, I'll sit out on a nice day, I'll sit out on my balcony and I'll just put an alarm so I don't have to watch my watch, and I do that, right? But I remember those 8 hours feeling like freedom. And then I went down to 6 patient hours.
Oh, wait, I want to pause for 1 second. I just want to point out one thing, which is so interesting because we're talking about lunch, this schedule for lunch and where it is and how it doesn't move off your schedule. And then I heard you talk about the evolution of how you spent that time, not that it changed location or whatnot. And that's what's really interesting is that when you put something on your schedule and you've called it a certain thing, that you might keep that. But what it actually evolves into, how you spend and show your time, can completely change. And yet, from the outside, it just says lunch.
Yeah. And to me, it is essential. Like, I cannot show up properly for people. I mean, there's studies on this too, that you just don't show up well. We need a literal midday break. But I remember moving to 6 hours and the freedom of that. And now I'm like trying to do like 3 hours of work. And it is that. I think that if you and I were placed in conditions where you had to teach your 3 classes, you would still shine. If you put me in 8 people, 11 people back to back, I would still shine because we'd show up for others. But the trade-off is both with age, with maturity, and I think how our time and our minds are depleted nowadays versus 20 years ago, just from media. What we are selling short is ourselves.
Sure.
I manage my schedule the way I do for 2 reasons. One, people pay a lot of money for my mind, and they deserve to get the best of my mind. But the other reason is this. I left therapy and I chose not to go work at a hospital, not to go work in the corporate world so that I could create a lifestyle that I loved. And I know some people here and like, oh, it's so much privilege. It is privilege, actually. Let's just start there.
Okay.
It's privilege insofar as I have the liberty to do it. But
Sure.
a lot of people think it's impossible. I'm like, it's not impossible. There's a choice there to leverage my privilege that I can do this for myself, right? And if I recreate a day where every day I feel like I can't catch my breath, where at the end of the day, I'm so tapped out, I don't have patience for my kids, I can't do the things I want to do, which in the summer, by the way, the end of a day is end the day around 4:30. And if I don't go to the gym, it's sipping a G&T in my backyard and just doing nothing. Sipping a G&T in my backyard. That's all I want to do. Then what the hell was the point? It would have been easier to go work in the corporate level. I would have had a paycheck that would have been steady. Yes, I would have been victim to the vagaries of layoffs and things like that. I've lived through like entrepreneur layoff a ton, months and months and months and months of not making money, of like working 80 hours to do nothing, right? Less than minimum wage when you look at like what you were paid versus the amount of time you put into it. The whole point of that sacrifice was creating a quality of life. And if we go back to what I talked about with scarcity, to me, one of the reasons why it's so important to cultivate and to work on an abundance mindset is the second we shift into scarcity mindset, whether it's scarcity about our worth or about time or about money or about opportunity, we make choices that compromise our well-being.
Sure.
Nobody makes good choices in a scarcity mindset. And sometimes it's really easy to see because you're literally walking around scared. You're walking around telling yourself, oh my goodness, like there's no business, there are no jobs, nobody wants to hire, nobody wants to pay, like these things aren't coming. I'm not living in that space. In my mind, I'm like, there's so many opportunities. We just need to create them.
Sure.
So it looks on the surface like abundance. But one level beneath that or overlapping is also this, yes, but if I want to have access to that abundance, I need to like make sure I take action right now because
Yeah.
otherwise it's going to disappear, which is not full abundance mindset.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that what you're talking about too, because I definitely can think of a time when I worked for other people, that I was an employee
Mhm.
and would work overtime and do all these things, but I might have been paid rather well. And I didn't have to think about some of the organization or the things that as an entrepreneur I would have to create. And I remember consciously going, well, I'm working this hard because I'm getting this money, and this money is going to allow me to get the things that XYZ. I remember like holding a party and buying all this food and doing all these things as a way of justifying all the work that I had done.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And now I don't see it that way so much as like a lot of times what changed for me was when you work for someone else, basically you're being paid to not go after your dream and instead build the dream of somebody else, which can be cool sometimes. And sometimes you're like, whoa, wait a minute.
Right.
Like that's insanity. But here's the other thing. Like on my watch and on my phone, I like to go to bed early already, but I have a timer that will say it's your bedtime and it will shut down and it won't allow me to do X, Y, and Z. But in my schedule, I don't have sleep from here to there. I don't have that scheduled. And now having this conversation, I'm like, why don't I? Why don't I have in my schedule one of the most important things that I need to do every day in order to wake up and be in that abundant mindset? Why is that not in my schedule? You know, why? I mean, and for the people who are listening to this too, during your day when you're awake, I'm sure you have scheduled but have you scheduled? I go to bed at this time. I'm sleeping at this time. I get up at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why wouldn't we put something so valuable in our calendar like that too? Even if we're not awake when it's happening, but just to see, oh, that is how I create a schedule. I create a schedule that puts on there things that are really valuable when my eyes are closed, when I'm horizontal, when I am not engaging in the world. That actually is just as important as this 20-minute coffee meeting with X, Y, or Z person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's a really interesting thing to begin to consider. You know, why are you even putting whatever you're putting on your schedule? Why are you putting it there?
So you bring two things. Really selfishly, I wanted to bring this topic because I'm regrounding myself in this. It's one of the things, I don't know if you find this, it's one of the things I love about the work we do. Because I am so much like the humans I work with, who are mostly women. It's a constant reminder to walk the talk. It's a constant opportunity in conversations with other people to catch things about myself, right? And then to go, oh, yeah, that too, right? So, and vice versa. I'm working on this, and then I think of these two women, one, as I said, an existing client, one a past client, but I'm going to share these insights with both of them. Because I'm like, I was thinking about this for me, and it had me thinking about you. And let's just explore it, because I could be wrong in the way I'm thinking about it, but how does this resonate? So having this conversation with you very selfishly is really wonderful. Hopefully, again, I can't imagine how it wouldn't be. It's very helpful to anybody listening. Hopefully, my hope for you is it triggers something, an insight, an awareness. And I'm all about insight plus action for change. So, and implement it. But I'm looking at my schedule right now. And first of all, I never want to look at my schedule and have my schedule stress me out. Right now, how busy it is stresses me out. I'll work on that. But I'm actually going to do that. I'm thinking about story time. As a parent, story time was a religious thing for us. We would come in and we would read books to my kids from the time they were small. Actually, we did it until my oldest was 11, and then he was not interested. And my youngest, we did until he was maybe 12, where we would, every night we'd read. The stories just changed, right? You went from reading picture books to reading like nonfiction history about World War II. But it was time. But we didn't put that in my schedule. I do have my kids' soccer practice in my schedule to remind myself that those are days I need to drive, but I'm going to do that. I want to see over the next few months what it looks like to enter the following things in my schedule. Sleep. I do have a reminder. I get the little bedtime bum bum bum, right? 10:15 that tells me it is now time officially to remember to unwind, and that's fine. I'm not usually on my phone at that time, so it's my watch that goes off, but I have a choice to ignore it or to follow it. But I'm going to put down the hours I plan on sleeping, and then I'm going to think about how I want to name, label, call my evening hours. Is it me time? Is it family time? What? I don't know yet, but there's something there to think about. We think so clearly or so strategically or so precisely about how we spend our working hours. I've got a meeting with Derek. I've got a meeting with Shauna. I've got a meeting with the boss. I got a meeting with the board. And we have names for how we spend all those hours, even focus time, right? Oh, I've got focus time technically from 8:30 to 10, which actually for 2 years I did protect. This month, these last few months, they've got out the window, but it's focus time. It's got a name. It's designed for me to come in and to center myself and to do whatever. But I don't have words for like what my weekend time. I have poker every Sunday from 2:30 till 8 p.m. Right? That poker time is blocked off. But I like this idea. And again, to come back kind of full circle, to me, it's two things. I like the idea of exploring this, not just in terms of how do I spend my time, but really acknowledging that how I choose to spend my time is not just a reflection of what opportunities or hurdles are in front of me. It is a really big reflection about what I believe to be true, either about the world or about myself, which is why I gave my client examples, because I think for them, it's about them. And if I say I believe something, is that belief present in all the ways I'm showing up in the world? If I'm trying to change a belief or a mindset pattern, what are the non-evident ways of seeing how that belief system insinuates itself in your life, right? I spent 2 years really working on abundance mindset and feel in general like I'm doing really, really well. But this reminds me, oh, it's insinuating itself in different ways. And so instead of beating myself up, instead of going, oh, I did it again, or feeling guilty, it's more of this, oh, I'm so grateful. Look at this opportunity to see in very bright colors on my schedule where I can practice what I preach, not just in terms of what I tell my clients about the time and the value of time and creating space and breathing, but also what I preach to myself about my belief systems and who I am and what my time is worth. So from you, I'm taking a few things. I have heard you talk about being a time billionaire, right? It's a very interesting concept. I told my group this morning, I have the same amount of time as everybody else has. I cannot stretch time. I cannot contract time. So time is what it is, and it is my choice how I spend it. I like this idea of, I'm self-evident, but so important, of I just need to look at my feet, right? Where are my feet planted? What does that say about what's a priority to me? And I'm taking away from our conversation today this idea of what happens, and I don't know yet. I'll check back in with y'all. But what happens, since I do live by my schedule, if I start scheduling or just mapping out, right? It's a forecasting. It's a projection of, if I start through my schedule projecting how I want to spend my time when I'm not working on my business.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I love that you said all those things, because it's great for me to hear them reflected back to me from your filter. And the thing for me too, one, from our first episode together, the phrase that you pulled out of me, I use every day, and continue to use, and it makes things so much better, is ease wins over effort.
Mm-hmm.
And for this session, I'm going to also put in my calendar sleep because it's not there. I would love to see it there and be like, oh yeah, that's a priority like everything else. But for me, I know like if I have a very clear schedule, like there's nothing there and there's one thing, I often can get drained because I feel like I need to prepare for that thing, or that thing is always coming. So I love blank schedules when there's nothing there, because the signal it gives to me is I'm that person, like if I'm in a foreign place or even in a place that I want to explore, one of my favorite things is to get lost. Literally go somewhere, I don't know where I'm going, figure it out, and then get found again. And that blank space says to me, you have the you don't owe anything to anybody. You can kind of do what you want. If you want to get lost, now. And we don't have to schedule that in, but it's just like that's what it signals to me, as opposed to, no, these blocks you have made commitments to and you've reserved for certain things, maybe in an effort to help keep them from overlapping so that that one version of you can be there and not split yourself. And so I'm really interested in maybe looking at my schedule and seeing, what can I pull off? What do I have on here that maybe needs to go away a little bit more? Or what else, maybe before I put something on there, what's the criteria it might have? And I don't know what that looks like either,
Yeah.
but I definitely want to play.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's play, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, and then we can come and check back in. And it's, yeah, my whole excuse has been, well, I'm taking, half a week off in July, and I took a half a week off in June, and then I traveled for work in June, and then I'm taking a full 9 days off in August. There are 1,000 excuses for why my schedule is packed the way it is, but I'm like, some of it is good. Some of it is time slots I've reserved for somebody, and once they choose one, all those other time slots will disappear.
Okay.
But
that works. Whatever works.
It's so when I tell somebody here these times are available, like I don't schedule over, and then they go, I want this time. I'm like, it's too late. Early bird and worm and all those things. But it is about, like, I feel freer just having had this conversation. It just feel it's a commitment to myself.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Oh my, thank you. Likewise. It's always great I love that you brought this topic and that we got to discuss it from a bunch of different angles too. Because I do feel a little bit lighter. I feel a little bit like, just naming those things and putting them out there instead of having them run around and consider. It's like, oh yeah, I've talked about that. I've created some room and some space. So thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Speaking of time, I gotta go, John.
I know, boo. I got you. It's all good. I got things coming up too, girl.
It's okay, because I'm gonna go jump to a place where most of the time the people I'm with run late, and I'll be there exactly on time.
Okay, perfect.
So that's it for today's episode. I will see you next time, whenever next time is. And it was lovely.